Hello, I'm old Mr. Kent, and I've been riding around on my E-Trike recently, telling my life story. And if you're interested in starting at the beginning, which probably not, but if you are, at the end of this video there'll be a link that says life story, and that'll take you into a playlist that you can start out the beginning. And so there's quite a few videos that you have to watch to catch up if you wanted to. All right, so today's story takes us up to 2004 and a little beyond. I was working at Walmart in the last video, and I had no reason to quit at that time, but as time went by, the management that came along later on, they were kind of like, they didn't care about you as much as they cared about them, I guess you could say. Management means managing people, not managing your job. So anyway, I got a little fed up with that. And at that point in time, my website was making pretty decent income. I made as much as $3,000 a month off of the ads on my website, because I had a typing tutor and a typing test that thousands of people came to, and then I had a 10-key tutor and 10-key test, and the postal service used that to train the people that worked at the counters and stuff like that to do the 10-key thing. And then I also had a punch clock that thousands of people used. And so at that point in time, my website was doing quite well. And I was 62. And so I decided, you know what? I didn't have a retirement because of if you've been following my channel, all the different jobs I had, I never had a retirement program, because at that point in time, they didn't have 401ks and things like that when I started. Now, by the time I ended, they had some stuff like that. Anyway, so I had no retirement. So I signed up for Social Security, and at age 62. And so that was coming in, plus my website, plus my wife was working, so we had some security in that job. And she had a really nice job as a drive-through teller at the bank, at a bank. And and they loved her. So anyway, so I thought, well, I'll just give up working at Walmart. So I gave that, I told them I was quitting and all that stuff, and got that all taken care of. And my airplane, when I moved to Spokane, see, when I lived in Pasco, Washington, it was just a short flight down to Hermiston, where the A&P mechanic lived and worked at the airport there. And so it was, he did all my annuals. See, once a year, every airplane has to be checked out by a licensed mechanic. A&P stands for Airframe and Power Plant, and so you had to have that. So I had a really good friend in Hermiston, and he did it for a really good price. And then also he gave you a lot of stuff and helped you a lot, and so we always went to him. Well, then he moved to La Grande and moved his business down to the airport there. And so I'd fly down to La Grande, Oregon. So I'd fly down from Pasco to La Grande, Oregon, and he would annual my airplane for me, and it was always good to visit with him and things like that. In fact, I gave him a computer. I won't go into details, but he didn't have a personal computer, and I gave him one. And so so we had a really good relationship. Well, then when I moved to Spokane, Washington, that was a lot further away than Pasco was from La Grande, Oregon. So I had to find a new A&P mechanic. And so I don't remember how I found this guy, but he was retired. He was just doing it to make a few extra bucks now and then. And so I got a hold of him, and I should have known, because the first time we were supposed to meet at the airport to annual my airplane, he was an hour late. So I sat around on the grass for an hour waiting for him to show up. And when they do that, they check the compression on your engine and a bunch of other stuff. Well, the compression was low on one cylinder, and so he said, we're going to have to take that off and have it honed out and everything like that. And so I said, well, can I do that? Yeah, he said, yeah. And so I had to order special tools to do that. With a 6-cylinder Continental engine, each cylinder is separate and you can take it off. And so I bought the tools and everything, and then met him at the airport again. And then after I bought all the tools, he says, no, I'll just do it with my tools. So that was a little disappointing. And but anyway, so I did take it, we got it off, and then I took it to a machine shop and they fixed it and we put it back on later. Well, so also in the process of checking, the carburetor on my plane had developed, when it would just sit for days, it had developed a little tiny leak from the gasoline coming out of the carburetor. If you know anything about carburetors, and some of you might, the float bowl, where the fuel comes into a little bowl and it has a thing floating, and when it gets full, then that thing comes up and shuts the valve off so that no more can come in. And then as you're running the engine, well, then that goes down and more fuel can come in. Well, that little valve was worn out. And I'm not going to go into the reason why this and everything, but the valve was worn out. And so he said, well, let's take the carburetor off. I'll take it home and replace that. So I said, okay. And then there was some other things that needed to be worked on and stuff. So some of that, like for instance, the exhaust system had a crack in it, and I told him that my son could weld that up, and so we took it off. I took it home, and I welded it up. Anyway, so there's a lot of little things that he really, he was doing all the stuff right, except that he had a bad attitude, I guess. So he takes it home, and he's going to get back with me. Well, 2.5 weeks went by, and he never got back with me. So then finally I decided, okay, so it was a rainy Saturday day. I called him up. I said, is my carburetor ready? And he said, well, yeah, you can come get it if you want. So I drove over to his place, and I think I paid him a couple $100 for the carburetor work. And because what you're supposed to do is replace that valve, and there's also, it's called a seat, where the valve goes into a little hole and plugs it up. And so he's supposed to replace all that. So I went and got it. I put it on the plane, and sure enough, it still leaked. So I took it apart, and I realized when I took it home, took it off the plane, took it home, put it in my little shop, which was a garage. And I could see why it still leaked, because he replaced the valve, but he didn't replace the seat, which is a thing that screws in. I got it all upside down here. But anyway, it screws in, and then you unscrew it and replace it with a new one. Well, he couldn't. I realized then that's why it was leaking, is he was not able to remove that screw. It had been in so long and corroded or something. Anyway, it was stuck. And I tried to get it with, and it was fairly big part, so a regular screwdriver just wouldn't turn it. So I made a special tool, and you don't want to mess up you don't want to mess up the slot where the screwdriver goes in, because then you can't get it open. So I made a special tool that out of a bolt, so I could hook a wrench to it, and made it so the edges of the blade were concave, so that it would sit right down in the bottom of the slot and not want to slide out. Now I'm sorry, ladies, if that's not making any sense, but to some guys it would make sense, especially guys my age. So so then I got that nut out real easy, or yeah, it was a nut. Anyway, so I got that out, ordered a new one, put it in, fixed it myself, and called him up, and I said, everything's working fine if you want to come sign it off. He didn't know. He was never mind. Anyway, so I don't know how many hundreds of dollars I gave him for doing very little, but I wasn't used to that because my friend down in Hermiston, he usually charged about $200 for the whole thing, $150, $200, because it's a fairly easy job to inspect an airplane. So anyway, now that I've retired and I'm living on Social Security and and my website, I thought, you know what? I don't know if I can afford an airplane anymore, because that costs me so much. And also, if you remember from one of my previous videos, when I moved from the desert country of the Pasco, Washington area to the wooded country of Spokane, Washington, my flying enjoyment really went down, because like I would say in my other videos before, I'd fly real low along, close to the ground. I could chase coyotes. That was always kind of fun, because some of them would run, some of them would turn and face you like, come on, get me. And so I would chase coyotes. One time I was chasing a coyote, and he flew underneath the power line, and I didn't see it coming. And so I flew underneath the power line really carefully and forgot about chasing that coyote. He was smart. So anyway, it just wasn't any fun flying up in Spokane, because all you could do is look down at trees from 300 feet up. No matter where you went, it was just trees everywhere. And so my enjoyment of flying went way down after I got moved to Spokane. And I thought, well, I don't know if I just want to keep this plane or just sell it. And so I decided I'd go ahead and sell it. Well, my oldest son, who has a successful accounting practice, in fact, he's now to the age where he's about ready to retire. He came up to visit me, and he had a gold wing, but he had also purchased a 1981 Harley Davidson Road King, just like my model, the model I had when he was a kid, when he was about 17 or so. And then I had that motorcycle, plus if you remember, I had a Super Glide, which was like a sport type Harley, but it wasn't a Sportster. It had the full shovel head engine and everything, and I had that. So the two of us, we would go riding together, and had some fun doing that. So anyway, he came up to visit, and we got to talking about me selling my airplane, and he decided maybe he'd want to buy the airplane. And so we talked about a price. Back then it was worth more than $25,000. I only paid $6,000 for it when I got it 15 years earlier. But anyway, and so we kind of negotiated the deal, and part of the deal was for him, because he had purchased a 1981 motorcycle just like the one I had. So part of the deal was trade motorcycle plus some cash, and and he would buy the airplane. So that was the deal that we made, and he went home, and we started making plans to conceal it deal and get it done. So anyway, there's a lot more to this story than that. This story took place at a time when there were a lot of changes going on in my life. And so, good morning. And so, I got to keep everything straight. So, we'll just leave it at this. We made a deal, and in the next video, we'll sign the papers. All right. So in the meantime, I want to thank you for watching my videos, and God bless.